Hi accounting class. Hello accounting class. We are going to go over this problem straight from your textbook. Okay? So this is in your Pearson textbook. On January 1st, 2017, Northeast Transportation Company purchased a used aircraft at a cost of $58,900,000. Okay. So this airplane, they are going to have you depreciate using three methods: the double declining balance method, the units of production method, or the straight line method. Okay? Now, over to the side of the board, I broke down the problem for you. The cost is $58,900,000. The miles driven for the airplane are 7,200,000. The residual value for this particular problem is 4,900,000. Other things we'll need later on, so always jot down notes of the particular problem. So other things we'll need is the number of miles flown during the year 1 and year 2. Now notice I only put up 2 years for this particular problem. Why? Because it's only asking us to compute depreciation on the airplane for the first 2 years. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to put down the book and I'm going to grab my notes. All right, first one we're going to go over is the easiest. So everybody get your notebook open, have your calculator ready. The first one we'll go over is straight line. All right, so straight line depreciation. Here's how you'll do it. You'll take cost minus residual value. Another name for this is salvage value. So residual value and you'll divide that by the life of the asset. For straight line, the life of the asset will always be in years. Okay? All right, so we're going to just input these numbers. 58,900,000. That was the cost of the asset. We will subtract out the residual value, which is 4,900,000. And we'll divide that by the number of years. Oh, I just realized I forgot to put in the number of years that they said that this asset is going to last. So I'm going to add that, 5 years. That's another factor that we need. So 5 years is saying this asset will last. So now I just input the number 5. We divide it out in your calculator, all right? So these are huge numbers. 58,900,000 minus 4,900,000 divided by 5 equals, I got to write it up here. I'm going to draw an arrow. $10,800,000. All right, understand what that number is? That is your depreciation expense for straight line depreciation for year 1. Okay? All right. Straight line is the easiest. Why? Because it's, as long as you purchased it on January 1st, it is exactly the same every year. So, we already did it for year 1. Guess what? Your answer will also be $10,800,000. Okay? Now, they asked us accumulated depreciation. Our answer would have been different. In year 2, you would take the $10,800,000 from the year before plus the $10,800,000. So you would add those two together in order to equal the accumulated depreciation. They're not going to ask that for this particular problem, but that's how you would do it. All right, so everybody remember this number, $10,800,000. All right, so I might need to erase to give myself more room. The next one I'm going to go to is units of production. Okay? Units of production are more steps than straight line. All right, so units of production. Step number 1. Figure the rate. All right, so to figure the rate, Your numerator, guess what, will be exactly the same as straight line. So you're going to take your cost minus your salvage value or residual value. If you hear me call it salvage value, it's because I deal with so many different accounting textbooks. This particular textbook calls it residual value. Okay? All right, so cost minus residual value. Then you'll divide this by the total number of units. So let me write that in. Total number of units. So remember, the numerator is exactly the same as straight line. The denominator, though, is total number of units. So I always say to students, find the largest non-dollar figure in the problem. So I'm looking back up. What's a non-dollar figure? This one. So I go over here, and now I input it. So let me erase, because I already told you what you're doing. You're going to take the total number of units. So now I'm going to erase, and I input my number, 7,200,000 miles. Okay? All right, so you just divide it out in your calculator. That's step one, though. So your rate to step one is $7.50. That's step one. Now we're on step two. Take your rate, so take rate and multiply by the number of miles used during the year. Okay? All right, so our rate is $7.50. And I look back at the problem. How many miles did they fly in year one? Here's year one, 750,000. Okay, I'm going to erase straight line now because you have that in your notes. And I need more room. All right, so I'm going to erase straight line. Remember, it's cost minus residual value. Okay, so there goes straight line. All right, so I'm going to take $7.50 times 750,000, and that equals 5,625,000. So that is your answer for depreciation expense for units of production for year one. Okay, now we're going to do year two. This is year one. It's asking for 2 years. Okay, so for year two, you're still going to take that $7.50. Don't change that. And we went over how to get that. So now we're going to take our rate, $7.50, and we're going to look how many miles did they drive it, the plane, on year two. Okay? All right, let me just make sure. Okay, couldn't find my notes. All right, so $7.50 times the number of miles used during the year. $7.50 times 1,375,000 equals 10,312,500. Okay? All right, what is that number? That is your depreciation expense for year two. So year one, it's 5,625,000. Year two, it's 10,312,000. All right, everybody, remember this number. We're going to need this at the end. Okay? All right. So I'm going to erase this now to have a nice, neat board. So I'm erasing. We now went over straight line and units of production. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to go over the most difficult one. However, I'm going to show you more details than the lab is going to require you to do. All right? So open up your notebook, have a nice clean sheet of paper so that you're understanding what's going on. Okay. So you're going to have your year. That will be your first column. Okay, so please work with me. You do not get this until you do it. All right, so year, and then you'll have cost. All right, I always label this / book value. If you look in textbooks, they're going to call it cost, but it's not. Later on, when you start working on different years, you're going to learn you're going to use book value. So, but when you work in the lab, just keep those titles that they have, cost / book value. Next column is your rate. Next column is depreciation expense. Next column is accumulated depreciation. Can't spell. It's a long one, okay? And then your last column is book value. All right, we're going to go over how to do each of these. This will be your most difficult one. I promise you it's not bad once you start understanding. Here's the problem. Students want to go from step 1 to step 5. Break it down slowly. So work with me as I'm breaking it down with you. Okay, the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is the rate, all right? The rate. I like decimals. You know that about me, okay? So in order to get a decimal, my number that will not change is the number 1. If you're the type where you would do a percent, you would put it over 100, all right? But so it's going to be 1. So 1 is the constant number. 1 divided by 5, okay? Why? The number of years. So 1 divided by, 1 never changes. What changes is the number of years. How many years in this problem? 5 years. So 1 divided by 5 gives me 0.20, okay? However, double declining balance, it will always be double the straight line rate. So I take this and I multiply it by 2, and that equals 0.40. Boom, that's your rate. Bring that right down. So I have 0.40, okay? All right, so now I'm going to start inputting my numbers. Before we begin, straight line, units of production, you took into account salvage value in the beginning. No. Do not do that with double declining balance. No salvage value in the beginning years. All right, everybody's taking notes right now. No salvage value in the beginning years. So I'm going to go over here and I have year 1. Well, what's my cost? $58,900,000. I take my calculator, 58,900,000 times 0.40, and that gives me 23,560,000. Okay, depreciation expense and accumulated depreciation are exactly the same. Why? Because it's year 1. You haven't started depreciating until the end of year 1. They purchased it on January 1st, so I just input that my number, 23,560,000. Nice and neat. Okay? All right, now take notes, but we did cover this in later videos. Even still, write it down. How do you get book value? You take cost and you subtract out accumulated depreciation. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to take the cost, 58,900,000, and we will subtract out the accumulated depreciation. When we do, we get 35 million. I'm going to erase everybody because I'm running out of room. So we don't need this. We already finished units of production. So I'm going to erase because it's a large number. So my book value is 35,340 million. Okay? All right. Year 2, it's only asking us to go up for 2 years. So that's it. We're going to stop. All right? Because there's more to do on this. All right, but now watch. This is why I don't like to call it cost. I like to call it cost/book value. Because in year 2, you're not using cost now. You're using book value. 35,340. I multiply it by the rate, 35,340, and I get 14,136,000. Okay, understand what this number is. This is my depreciation expense. Now, to get my accumulated depreciation, I'm going to take my year before, 23,560, plus my depreciation expense for this year, 14,136,000, and I get 37,696. Remember, accumulated depreciation accumulates. That's a year-to-date total. Okay, now to get the book value, I'm going to go all the way back. There are different ways to do it, but don't get confused. How do you get book value? So you're going to go all the way back to cost, 58,900,000. You're going to subtract out your accumulated depreciation, and you get $20,204,000. Okay? All right, we're going to stop there for this particular because they're only asking for 2 years. All right, now I'm going to erase, and everybody remember these numbers. All right, so let's grab this. All right. All right, I'm going to write this number now, 23,560. 23,560,000. What is that? That's my depreciation expense for a double declining. Okay, so I'm going to erase, and here's what it's going to ask. It's going to ask us to do the book value for year 1 for each of the methods. Okay? All right, so you already had book value for double declining. But at any rate, I'm going to show you. All right, so straight line, units of production. I should probably put it up here. All right, straight line, units of production, double declining balance. Okay? All right, so we have cost for straight line, okay, which was 58,900,000. Guess what? The cost is exactly the same for all of the 3 methods, right? It's the accumulated that's different. Nope. Forgetting this is such a large number. All right, so next we have less accumulated depreciation. For straight line, we figured 10,800,000. Okay, remember, this is a contra asset. We're going to subtract this. So my book value, BV year 1, is 48,100,000 for straight line. Units of production, okay, we figured 5 million. They obviously didn't fly the plane that much that year. 5,625,000. Okay, and that will be 53,275,000. Okay, so that's units of production. Okay, now double declining. Remember, it's only asking for year 1. Double declining, I showed you, we did do the 2 years, but it's only asking for year 1. So I input my number and I wrote that over here. That was 23,560,000. I have a small board, so I had to erase. So my book value for year 1, I take 58 million minus 23,560,000, and I get 35,340,000. Okay? All right, so that's how you do that problem. Remember, they're only asking for 2 years of depreciation. However, you're doing it as if you kept going, but you stopped at year 2. And for this second part of this problem, they're only asking for the book value for year 1. So don't forget that. All right? Get in the lab, get that homework done, and I will see you soon.